Hi there, I'm Claire Bestland, and I'm a guitar slinger, singer-songwriter, and composer who a few years ago ran to the hills of Wakefield, Quebec, and never left. And I'm really glad I stayed, because today I get to be your host of Udaway Live, the weekly arts magazine series devoted to showcasing the unique arts and culture of the Udaway region of West Quebec. Each episode, we showcase artists of all practices, as well as venues, galleries, and cultural and performance spaces from all over the rural region of the Udaway. Now, ever since I came here, I've been wondering what it is about this area that attracts so many creative people of like mind. From artisans to craftspeople to musicians, visual artists, painters, writers. Maybe there's something in the water. Now, if I keep talking like this, it might turn out you do have all day. But for now, why don't you kick back, relax, and come along for a ride with us to experience the artistic side of life right here on Udaway Live. Today on episode 11 of Udaway Live, we have a musical performance by Robert Wills. Robert is originally from Kentucky, and he's now a singer-songwriter based out of Shawville, Quebec. And I really enjoyed his elaborate fingerstyle guitar playing. I'm sure you will too. He'll be performing right here at Café Downtown, which is a brand new venue in downtown Fort Coulonge, Quebec. We'll be speaking to the owner, Rémi Bertrand, who's going to tell us the story of how he opened the cafe and tell us a little bit about some of the music that he features here. Then we're going to head down to Meech Lake to have a chat with world-renowned ceramic artist Paula Murray. Paula's going to show us some of her exquisitely detailed and delicate ceramic work.
I'm Robert Wills, and I live in Shawville, Quebec. I have a place that I spend as much time as I can up in the hills of Thorn, which is just a few miles away. And I was born and raised in Kentucky, but the war in Vietnam offered me an opportunity to travel overseas or to Canada, and Canada seemed a lot better choice. And I was actually afraid that I'd be too cold, but I find that I enjoy Canadian winters better than I ever enjoyed Kentucky winters. I was writing music before I knew how to play an instrument. So when I got the trumpet, instead of learning the songs that I was supposed to learn for the high school band, I was trying to play Wonderland by Night and things by Al Hirt and that sort of thing. And then when I got the guitar, let's see. The first song I learned, which is the first song that a lot of people have told me was the first one that they learned, was House of the Rising Sun. And if you learn that song, you should be able to play just about any other song, because it's got all the chords, and it's got the finger picking and the modal transitions and all that kind of thing. My dad was a newspaper editor, and so from him I got the idea that of using words as a as a social engineer. That's basically an editor or a songwriter is a social engineer, trying to make people think differently than they do. I don't want to make them all think like I do, because we'd be in trouble then. A rhyme is your basic unit of a sense of humor, because you take a rhyme, it implies a connection between these two words that doesn't necessarily exist in any other context. And of course, John Lennon and Bob Dylan and John Prine are masters at doing that. A rhyme means that a thing can mean two things at once. And the master rhymers make it mean several different things at once.
Guess you've always been my only sweetheart. You've been my secret lover all the while. And though I've only just now met you face to face, I've known you for all my life. Now that I've found you, oh, I just want to love you till the day I die. Don't you ever say goodbye. You're the one, you've been in all my dreams. I hope that I'm the one who's been in yours. I'd like to crawl inside a dream with a you and shut the door. Oh, now that I have you, oh, I just want to love you till the end of time. Don't you ever say goodbye. Now that I have you, oh, I just want to love you till the day I die. Don't you ever say goodbye. Don't you ever say goodbye. Don't you ever say goodbye. I'm just another hobo on this train. I'm just another hypocrite who's rattled his own brains at 90 miles an hour, encircling the drain. I'm just another hobo on this train. This train is bound for glory. We don't know when. Maybe it's already been, and it's headed back again. The slaves who built this railway have left a bloody stain of just another hobo on this train. I saved up all my pennies and I gave them to the poor. I found a starving orphan girl, I fed her by the door. She showed me how to pick a lock and live without the shame of being just another hobo on this train. lovesick junkie with wild eyes and a knife. Said he's bound to hurt someone and then take his own life. My throat is getting tighter as I'm trying to explain that he's just another hobo on this train. I walked down to the station and I waited in the rain. The moon rose on the river, I watched it wax and wane. I took down my old notebook and I wrote down this refrain of just another hobo on this train.
Rémi Bertrand. I'm the owner of Café Downtown here in Fort Coulonge. So when COVID hit, I was actually working in the entertainment industry in LA on the West Coast. And COVID hit, so everybody had to go back and, wherever home was for everybody. So this was home for me. This Fort Coulonge is my hometown, and I've been a resident of the Pontiac, even though I was working on the West Coast. My driver's license was always here in Campbell's Bay, Quebec. I worked for a few months after COVID hit on the projects that we were working on in Canada and US, real estate and entertainment. And so I just decided, I said, okay, so once that is done, what do I do? So I have 4 passions in life, basically. Coffee, craft beer, wine, and music. So Café Downtown, it's how can I put, amalgamation of those 4 passions. We bought this building here. It was a former 1940s building, no charisma at all. It was just a square building, paneling on the walls, and suspended ceilings, commercial tiles on the floor. In the building here, what you'll see when you walk in is actually a lot of history of the Pontiac. There's a piece of the covered bridge. The blackboards are actually old blackboards from one of the first schools here in Fort Coulonge, Saint-Pierre. The brick behind the music stage is from an old house that we reclaimed. The bar is actually made of white pine that was from a windfall near our family sugar shack. And we tried to bring a little bit of a hipster vibe, but also, a big easy type of feeling. And so that's Café Downtown. We did a partnership with the local radio station, CHIP-FM, and they had a grant from the Ministry of Culture. So we had artists touring, all of Quebec that came here, and they really enjoyed it. A couple comes in, and they're from Montreal, and she's a folk artist and a recording artist, and she says, hey, I heard my friends came to play here, and they really liked it, so we're on vacation, so we said, hey, let's go in that area and check it out. And she's supposed to supply me with some dates. So that's the concept, and we want to just make it grow as much as we can. And the stage is open to local artists on a weekly basis.
Hi, my name is Paula Murray, and I'm a ceramic artist. I live on the shores of Meech Lake, and I've been here for many years, actually, since I left school. So how I got into ceramics, it's not so much of a pursuing a passion, but it was more, I think of it as following my heart. I had started studying science actually at Ottawa U. I'd always been interested in the connection between the mind and the body. And I thought science was a good way to pursue that interest of mine. And partway through that process, I was really wondering if I was on the right track. So luckily for me, I stumbled into a ceramic studio that was very close to the campus at Ottawa U, and sat down on a wheel, and that centrifugal force just sucked me right in. And before I knew it, I found myself at Sheridan College outside of Toronto, and it was a really renowned school for studying craft. And so I was there for a couple of years and went to the Banff School of Fine Arts for a couple of summers. And that whole experience just opened my mind to thinking about clay in ways that I'd never considered before. How every society had a different clay in their backyard and did different things with it. Did learned different firing techniques, different decorating techniques, and recorded what was important for them. And so I think of that exposure giving me an opportunity to approach it. We have that term world beat music, so this is kind of world beat ceramics. Sort of, there's different traditions, there's different ways, and I was really interested in dipping in and being inspired by so many different ways of being. It opened the door for me to start a process, but as with many materials, it takes years and years to develop your skill as a craftsman and to develop your toolbox, to expand that repertoire of vocabulary, that what you can do. And so over the years you find yourself being able to say things through your materials, through your processes that you never thought you could talk about. And so it's been a very interesting journey that's kept me fascinated and keeps me fascinated, and I'm looking forward to the next pot that I'm going to make. When we're thinking about pots, we think of them as vessels, and vessels are often thought about in the context of a human being, as a body. For example, when we're looking at a vase, it has a lip and a neck and a shoulder and a belly and a foot. So we really think of them in this human context, and so it's been very interesting for me to evolve my work, keeping it rooted in the vessels, but thinking about how a vessel can really examine the human condition. In the late 80s, there was an opportunity to apply to create work of art, public art, for the regional government headquarters, which is now Ottawa City Hall. And so I ended up being awarded a commission for a piece there, and that piece is called Nautilus. So it's quite wonderful to have a piece in a public space. It gets visited and seen every day, and it was a very large work, 13 feet across, suspended in the atrium off of Lisgar Street, and it turns once every 2 minutes. And the idea of that piece was based on the interior architecture of a nautilus shell and that energy of coming together, that confluence of structure to give order to our society. And so I chose to make it with 33 arcs. And at that time there were 33 councillors in the region. And so I was making pots for the table. But after a certain period, I really recognized that those surfaces weren't the most functional surfaces, and where my interest was more expressive vessels containing ideas, not so much soup. And so I have been moving away from that direction of functional work into more expressive sculptural vessels. In 2017, I had a really wonderful opportunity that came to my attention. Maybe you're familiar with Students on Ice in Chelsea. They're an organization that for years and years have brought students from the north, from all parts of Canada, from all around the world to experience the Arctic or the Antarctic. And because it was Canada's 150th birthday, they had this idea of bringing Canadians together in greater conversation to really look at what it means to be Canadian and now, and at our marking our 150th year. And so, as we know, that anniversary sparked a whole lot of emotions from many perspectives. And I know the First Nations people were thinking about Canada 150. Well, why don't we add a few zeros onto that, because we've been here a long, long time. And so it was, I applied for that opportunity to be an artist on residence, because what they did was they took 150 days, broke that into 15 legs of about 10 days each, so that the whole trip went from Toronto, circumnavigated Canada through the Northwest Passage, and ended up in Victoria 150 days later. So I was on Leg 8, which traveled from Kiktarjak up to Pond Inlet. And it was an amazing opportunity of learning, of immersing myself in another culture, in a very intense community. There were scientists, there were teachers, there were journalists, there were writers, there were New Canadians, First Nations people. That it was a really diverse cohort of people. There were celebrities, there were athletes, there were, a whole range of people to explore ideas of reconciliation, inclusion and diversity, the environment, and youth empowerment. Digesting that experience led me to move away from the direction of stress management and fracture of the normal visual vocabulary of my work, and really focus on how important listening is. And so I created a piece that I called Who is Speaking, Who is Listening? And it is based on the idea of an ear horn. So, it has those Victorian roots. It's the first hearing aid. It was made out of an animal horn. And it also can be used as a megaphone. And so that's this relationship of this object. I just wanted to use that as a central idea. So I was thinking of that relationship of communication, of speaking and listening. And so I was initially thinking of building the piece with 94 of these horns to reference the 94 calls to action for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report. But that wasn't going to fit on the 8-foot length of a full sheet of a solid material that I could present them on, because I wanted to be a seamless relationship. So I have them nestled together and then moving out and moving back in. Lots of references that I've enjoyed playing with in the rhythm of making that piece. But for me, the central idea is about this equal playing field, and seeing people as equals, and how much we can learn from each other if we can only listen and respect.
Nobody should ever be alone like I once was. Everyone should have someone to love. Anytime I find that I'm feeling sorry for myself, I close my eyes and fantasize about being someone else. It's like I woke up with someone else's blues, in someone else's body, facing someone else's views. I'm stumbling around in someone else's shoes. Since I woke up this morning with someone else's blues. I concede that there's a need for saying something nice, but no one seems to want to pay for all this good advice. If I were you, here's what I'd do to frame a good excuse. I would say I woke up today with someone else's blues. It's like I woke up with someone else's blues, in someone else's doghouse, smelling someone else's pew. Someone offered help, but I refused. Since I woke up this morning with someone else's blues. Listen, dear, I need to make it clear, I'm not a hurtful man. I'm here to stay, and come what may, I'll do the best I can. If I should change and act deranged and you are not amused, maybe it's not even me, it's just someone else's blues. It's like I woke up with someone else's blues, in someone else's lover's arms, paying somebody else's dues. If I've seemed somewhat frightened and confused, it's 'cause I woke up this morning with someone else's blues. It's like I woke up with someone else's blues, in someone else's doghouse, smelling someone else's pew. Someone offered help, but I refused. Since I woke up this morning with someone else's blues.